So I'm just kind of testing things out. But I figured if I'm going to test something out, I might as well actually do something as well. So I'm just going to kind of give you a preview of some of the stuff I have coming up, as well as some possible projects. If anybody that knows me or lives in the area or could Skype in would like to participate. So first, I guess we'll just talk about it. Southern Bastards Volume 2. This is the one that I'm going to be covering right now. I've just deleted the episode. We're going to scrap it. We're going to figure out how to do just a YouTube live hangout sort of situation. I think that's going to be the best. It'll also end up saving me a ton of money in the future if I can just kind of do stuff like that and I don't have to travel up to Kansas City every time I want to do an episode with Rao or Fleming or whoever. It also opens up a lot of possibilities in the way of, talking to people that I know in California or talking to people that I know in Washington. So hopefully, let's cross our fingers that I can get all of this figured out so that we can move forward. What it did was we had recorded, and at the very beginning of the recording, it was normal. And then by the time, if I skipped all the way to the end of the video, it sounded like everything was just sped up to 10 times normal. And it sounded like we were both chipmunks talking back and forth and we were moving around really quick. So I don't know if it was something with the compression, like we had gone too long or something like that. And so it compressed everything. So hopefully we can get that figured out. I really don't want to have to pay for editing software since this is all I'm doing. I'm not, making movies. I just want to record me and my buddies sitting around talking about comics. So if I can do that without having to pay, $100 for some editing software that's going to do way more than what I need it to do, then that would be great. So let's keep going. Another project that I have coming up is going to be Vader Down. I'm doing this with Jacob Whittington. He just returned this to me. I'm currently writing the script out or the questions out for it. I'm still trying to get the hang of this whole camera thing. Usually it's just audio, and so you can't hear me looking at my notes. But I always have notes because there's just so much. We're covering an entire volume, and in the past, I read it first, I wrote the notes, and then I handed it off. Now I'm trying to have them read it first, I read it, and then I write the notes then. So it should be a little bit fresher in my mind. We'll see. It might just be that I'm constantly looking at my notes, and hopefully that doesn't turn people off too much. But as I go, I've noticed that since my first episode, I've gotten quite a bit better anyway, and I know I'm not the greatest. But yeah, hopefully it'll just be one of those things that over time it gets better and better. So just kind of hang with me, guys. Or if you guys have any suggestions, just let me know. I'm constantly trying to learn this stuff. I am not tech savvy. I know how to get around some computers, and whenever compared to the people I work with, I do all right. But when it comes to stuff like this, I'm at a complete loss. So I'm willing to take any and all suggestions. Let's keep moving on. I don't have the comics with me. Currently, I have Flashpoint on Slate. The person is currently reading it, and then they'll return it to me. I'll write my script. We'll do an episode. I'm still trying to get with Rao so that we can do Invincible Omnibus 1. We just want to knock these out in Omnibus because there are, 100 volumes of it. Or we can do 12 Omnibi. And then, God, who else do I have? Oh, we've got Brent Fairchild, who's going to be doing the Dark Tower with me. I'm still waiting on Kent to read his Batman so that we can get that going. His son Adam is supposed to be reading Thor, so hopefully we can get Thor going. I have Batman Court of Owls out with another person who should be finishing that up pretty soon. She said she was going to start reading it and diving in after she got done with her classes, which is going to be this Saturday. David Mueller is also coming on again. He's going to do Vader Volume 2, and that's from the Charles Soule Vader. So, yeah, that'll be pretty good. I really enjoyed that one. It's kind of a juxtaposition sort of thing where with Jacob, he's super excited all the time, and he's really, really into it. He's a super fan, and he knows absolutely everything there is ever needed to know about Star Wars. And then you have David, who's a bit more chill, kind of more my personality. He likes Star Wars, really enjoys it. He likes digging deeper into kind of some of the philosophical questions. But I had just as much fun. And that's kind of what I'm finding with doing these episodes, is there's so many different personalities, and yet we're all drawn to kind of the same thing, which is comics and storytelling in general, which is all comics are. It's just amazing storytelling, and then you also get imagery to go along with it. And I'm finding that through this, whenever I read a book, I'm just constantly picturing what it would look like in comic book form. Also, doing this comic book with Rao, I'm starting to kind of think in comic book terms as well of, well, this would look like this with so many panels, and then we'd have to put the thought bubbles here, and this is the dialogue that we would have. We'd have to cut this dialogue. So it's really interesting how kind of everything is shifted in how I look at stories now. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on. I just finished Red Hood and the Outlaws. This one took me by surprise with how good it was. I had seen the Comics Explained whenever Rob ran over these, and it sounded interesting, so I just picked it up. And, I mean, as much justice as he did do it, it's a lot better than even I thought it was going to be when I picked it up. I would love to do... This is one that's not currently slated to be an episode. So, yeah, any of these that I don't specifically say has an episode yet, hit me up if you're interested. I'm still reading Batman White Knight. And that's kind of what... Going back to what I was talking about, seeing everything in comic book form, I'm also reading comics in... how would this look as an episode? And within 2 pages, I knew I need to do an episode on this right here. It's amazing because a lot of people shit on the big 2 because, well, it's predictable storytelling. Sean Murphy kills it. Completely flips everything on its head, gives you Batman from a whole different perspective, gives you everybody from a whole different perspective. And I'd love to see an expansion of this universe specifically. They've put it under Black Label, and at first I didn't quite know what that meant because you have Batman Damned, which is going to be under Black Label, and I get that it's going to be just Elseworlds. It's just going to be whatever people want to come up with that might be darker, grittier storytelling. I didn't realize they were going back and retroactively adding things to Black Label, which, I mean, it's smart in the marketing sense that you can kind of resell these now because they have that Black Label sticker. It's going to rejuvenate some interest. I know just for me, I haven't read a lot of old DC. I really just picked up with New 52, and then there are pieces and parts of some history that I know. But yeah, seeing that, oh, well, this one's going to be Black Label. Well, that might be interesting. Or this one's going to be black. It piques my interest. And I think that's kind of what they were going for. Not that, oh, these were so edgy that we have to put them somewhere else. It also helps people who are just getting into it not only pique their interest, but it kind of tells them, hey, this happened somewhere else. This isn't necessarily in the mainline continuity. So if you do happen to pick up this trade, don't think that this lines up with the Batman that you're currently reading or the Superman that you're currently reading. It doesn't necessarily mean that these are going to line up. This was just a fun story that maybe had some more adult themes in it. Another one that I haven't read yet is Outcast number 3. Am I holding this up? Okay. Outcast number 3. I still haven't. I've done a review of Volume 1. I just finished reading Volume 2, and I haven't read Volume 3 yet. Outcast is one that I'd really like to get somebody who's kind of into the horror genre. This was one that I had bought just because Kirkman was a part of it. Once I started reading Walking Dead, and then I got into Invincible, I started just kind of looking at anything Kirkman touched, and I've done that with several authors. Jason Aaron's one of them. Scott Snyder, Tom King. You know, you get these writers, and you're just like, yeah, I'll read whatever write it on a napkin. I'll read it. Speaking of, that's kind of what I did here. Jeff Lemire, an amazing writer. I can honestly say I've never even heard of Frankenstein, Agent of Shade. But just kind of flipping through it, the art's pretty cool. I've never even heard anybody talk about it. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It came out of the New 52, so it could have just been something that got lost in all of the crap that came through. Not saying that this particular story was crap, but it is one that I'm interested in seeing. One, because it's not the normal, DC looking story. Just flipping through it, I didn't see Superman or Batman. I don't even think I saw Swamp Thing, though. Again, I haven't read any of it. But yeah, this was one that I picked up that it just said Jeff Lemire on it, so I grabbed it. Another one, and this is another author that I'll read just about anything they've done. Jeff Johns did Green Lantern, Sinestro. Again, I haven't read this. I did read Blackest Night, so I kind of jumped in at the end of the movie instead of reading all the way through the War of Color, the Color War, I don't know, and I feel like if I say it wrong, then it's gonna come out sounding really, really bad. But it was the war where all the different color spectrums got together and started fighting each other, which brought about the Blackest Night storyline. So yeah, I'm really interested to kind of dive into here too. I really got into Green Lanterns with the Rebirth. I followed Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. I didn't read Green Lanterns, just because I didn't really want to use the bandwidth or my budget to concentrate on two characters that I didn't know about. Simon Baz and I can't think of her name right now. But yeah, I really got into those, and it kind of reinvigorated my enjoyment of the Green Lantern mythos. So yeah, I'm trying to find my way back to the beginning so that I can work my way up chronologically through Blackest Night. Next up, we have Detective Comics Volume 1 from Rebirth. I jumped in way late in the game on Detective Comics. I started picking them up right around the time that people started talking about Doomsday Clock, and then I heard that a lot of the stuff that happens in Detective Comics kind of bled into that. So that's when I started picking up Detective Comics. So even though I kind of know what's going on in it, I don't know what's going on in it. I haven't read it yet. Whenever you have, this is half of my stack of trades, not just comics, because I'm still getting stacks of comics every month too for my pull list. I kind of have to take my time and read through these. Plus, I'm writing scripts for other stuff. I'm trying to meet people so that we can do episodes. I'm trying to do all kinds of stuff. So it takes me a while to start reading through. Next, I have Old Man Logan. I was pretty excited to get this because on Amazon I couldn't get it for less than $25. Local comic book store at our mall had a sale going on, buy two, get one free. So found it, got it. Technically this was the free one, so I got it for free. I have read this story before. I read it to my classroom, and just flipping through the page, that might have been not the best thing. I do remember that while I was reading it, it was a scene where some raiders had come up on Old Man Logan and Hawkeye. Sorry, I have the hiccups. And they just started beating the crap out of Logan, and they're hitting him with like bike locks and crap like that. And then I had a walkthrough, so then I had to kind of pause because I know it's about to get more violent, and connect it to education, which was, I mean, that was the whole point anyway. I wasn't just reading comics for the hell of it, but yeah, it's a really good story, and it does have a lot of deeper meaning than just, oh, Wolverine is going through and killing people as an old man now. So yeah, I'd love to do an episode over this, especially since it's kind of a one-off. We would do it one time, and we could get into the Marvel's Old Man Logan, where he comes over into our universe. That'd be awesome too. But this one in particular is one of my favorite stories ever. We also have Injustice Volume 1. This was a really fun one for me because I put it off forever. I had played the Marvel versus Mortal Kombat or whatever, and it was so stupid for me that whenever they said, oh, Injustice, you're going to have superheroes fighting superheroes. And I was like, well, that's a cool concept, but I mean, there's not like any story there. Turns out it's a pretty awesome story. And so whenever I finally did pick it up, I was pleasantly surprised. This is, again, you can find reviews all over the internet, and Rob over at Comics Explained did an amazing job, and I binge watched all of them. Not all in one sitting, but I'd watch, and then I'd have to go do something else because, you know, life. And then every chance I got, that's what I was watching. So I know what's going to happen, but again, he does such a good job of explaining it and doing a run through. But then also whenever you do pick it up and you read it, there are things that I don't want to say he missed, but things that were left out that enhance the story even more. A lot of stuff that I'm reading is based off of him. So, yeah, if any of you watch him, if any of you know him, if somebody happens to stumble upon this channel that knows him, tell him I think he's awesome and he should totally come check out my channel. And also tell other people to come check out my channel. Yeah, that's all I got. Next, we have Swamp Thing. This was one, I don't know anything about Swamp Thing, but I do know that Scott Snyder is awesome. And so whenever I picked it up, it was me learn. I mean, I had heard of Swamp Thing before, but I had never read any comics. This was the first Swamp Thing that I ever read. And so I was pretty excited to pick it up. I am finding that comics are a lot less daunting now that I learned about like trades. And I resisted trades for the longest time because I like having the physical comic with me. But what I'm finding is that I don't have to have every single comic that looks cool in my pull. I can have it just setting off to the side, and I can have, you know, the Justice League that Scott Snyder's doing. I'm going to pick that up whenever the trade comes out because I don't want to have that in my pull every month. on top of the 15 other titles that I have in my pull. That's not to say I won't ever switch out, but usually if I miss the first round, I'll just keep picking up trades rather than pick up in the middle of something. Moving on, we've got Hellboy, Volume 1. This was one that it's not the greatest comic I've read, but it's really good. And I think the fact that I had seen the movies kind of set my expectations high. So whenever I read it, I was like thrown off just a bit. Not in a bad way. I was just expecting it to follow a little more closely. But it's also one of those things I can see why the movie didn't follow so closely. There's only so much you can do in comics, and I think it's nice to have a different feel to it. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the second one that I read as well. And it's one that's, I have, the next 4 volumes sitting in my cart right now on Amazon. So it's one that I try to pick up anytime there's a price change or anything like that. Next, we have Aquaman. Again, Geoff Johns. This was, again, my introduction to the real Aquaman, as I like to call him. Before this, Aquaman was just a big joke. I made all the same jokes that everybody else did about Aquaman. That he talks to fish, he rides a seahorse. It was the old Justice League version of Aquaman. So whenever I read this, I was like, oh, Aquaman's kind of a badass. So, Geoff Johns, I feel, reinvigorated the character. I'm super excited to see the movie that's based off of Geoff Johns' story of Aquaman. I think that was the perfect thing to do. I know they're going to adapt it some way, and I can kind of see it in the trailers. But yeah, it's going to be amazing, and I think they're going to do a lot of justice to it. What I in particular like is that Geoff Johns has been helping out with the movie, and so when you have the writer on set saying, no, this is how it's supposed to be, or when you have the writer working with the writers for the movie saying, this was my vision, or the fact that the writers are even open to taking suggestions from Geoff Johns, in my mind, that is the best possible way to turn a comic book that was highly successful into a movie that will be highly successful. Next and last on my list, this is the end of my pile, is Carnage USA. This is one that snuck up on me. I was just looking through Amazon for Carnage stuff, or for Venom stuff, or for Spider-Man stuff. This was like as I was getting back into comics from my long hiatus. The cover art really pulled me in. It looked really cool. It was a bit graphic, and not graphic as in like bloody or anything, but it's very computer, I don't know how to explain it. Which whenever I saw that throughout the comic book, it looks really cool. It would make a really cool poster, but I wasn't sure how I felt about it all throughout the comic book. Not to say that it like ruined the story or anything for me, but as I hang out with more and more artists from Comic-Con, and as I get to know the process of making this art, I've really come to appreciate how much work went into this. It wasn't just somebody on a computer moving stuff around. Which, I mean, before I got into any of this, I didn't know what. I have zero artistic skill or talent, so whenever I see people draw, I'm just like, oh, you're drawing, and you just happen to be really good at it. So then whenever I would see digital stuff, I would say, oh, well, that it's not that difficult to move things around on a computer. It's not like you're drawing it. But seeing some people work, oh, crap. And it really has given me a whole new appreciation for just drawing in general. Any sort of art. And I I have to admit that whenever I first started reading, there was some comics that I'd pick up, I'd look through, the art would be not exactly my style, and I would just put it down. And sometimes that'll do it to me, right? I mean, even still, if I'm reading a comic and the art changes to something that's not necessarily aesthetically pleasing to me, then it just pulls me out of the story. The best example of this is the new run on the Green Lantern. It's DC's kind of going this way of making all of their art retro. They've done it in the Flash. They did it with Green Lantern, like, by leaps, and they went way back on the art with that. They even went with, like, the soft pages, not the glossy pages, which bugs me a little bit. But it's just, it's weird because, especially with the Flash, I loved the art in the Flash, and now they've just gone to this retro style, and I'm kind of just holding my breath waiting for that to end. I don't know. If you guys like it, let me know why. Or if you feel the same as I do, let me know how it's affected you reading these comics. I don't know. It's just maybe, I don't know. the Green Lantern ones, it's not bad. I don't appreciate it as much as some might. I don't want to say it's bad art because it's great art. I mean, the detail work, everything that they do, going in and just adding all these little tiny pieces, and I can see the work that went into it. I can see the effort that they did to make this picture. I'm just not a huge fan of it, and it's kind of taking me out of the story. So that's just me getting up on my soapbox, complaining. But yeah, again, if any of these struck you as something you might be interested in, or you know somebody who might be interested in, send them my way. Again, keep an eye out for those stories that I told you I had coming up. I'll be trying to post episodes as much as possible. I'm trying to kind of get a backlog of episodes so that I can have a more scheduled release. I'm also still playing around with a lot of this technology, so hopefully I can get it going and I can get it right and I can get it to start looking a lot better. But yeah, again, leave me some suggestions. Let me know what I'm doing wrong. Let me know what I can do to get right. Also, don't worry about commenting on the lighting in here. I'm working on getting some studio lights so that you don't have just the one shaded side. Again, this is all just a big, long process for me. I'm loving every second of it. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to be a while. Also, I now have merch. It's not Comic Den merch. It's not legit arts merch yet. I'm getting logos in hopefully sometime this week. Then I can start putting that on some merch. Right now it's Magnus the Brave stuff. I pulled pictures straight from the pages of Magnus the Brave, which is a comic that I helped write, that Chris Rao did all the illustrations, did all the inking, did all the color. He did everything. I just helped write it. But we're pulling images straight from that, putting them right on t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, whatever. So yeah, you can go on Teespring/store/The Comic Den, all one word. And I know that's a lot, but it's also on my Instagram page. The link's in my bio. So yeah, go check it out. Buy some merch. The great thing about Teespring is you can buy it. It takes about 3 days for them to print, and then they ship it to you so that I don't have to fill my basement with boxes and boxes and boxes of all different types of shirts. Yeah, it's great. So go help support Magnus the Brave. Also, speaking of Magnus the Brave, you can go to Mr. Rao Arts, talk to him about getting some books. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for hanging out with me. Peace.